opportunity to be the chair of the IEBC. How are you going to prioritize and manage these processes that are legally required before the next election? That's part one of the question.
Thank you, Ambassador Koki Moli. I am very happy to see you here. When I used to be in the human rights, our paths used to cross frequently. Allow me then to give my responses to these very vexing questions, because every Kenyan is thinking about the same, that now that it has taken this long to have IEBC in place, the commissioners, and yet we have all these pressing issues that are pending. So allow me then to tell Kenyans, because I'm sure they are watching many of them, that one of the very, very first tasks that I will undertake as a chair, together with the commissioners and working closely with our secretariat, is to look at, number one, what are these pending issues post-2022 elections that require the attention and decisions of the commission? Because the commission takes decisions as a body corporate. So we will look at, for example, matters related to the pending by-elections. I know there are about, I think, 7 of them, or 12. There are issues around, of course, boundary delimitation, for which the constitutional time limits for review lapsed last year around March. And then, of course, there's now where the rubber meets the road, the 2027 elections. How can we then work backwards from the August date to where we begin our work as a commission? And I must tell Kenyans then, therefore, that the reason why this exercise is being undertaken is so that to have the 7 commissioners who will be a board corporate, who are responsible for initiating some of these actions through either gazetting some processes to begin. So as the new chairman, if I'm successful, I will work with my secretariat and and colleagues to look at how do we then sort out the issue of the by-elections. How do we initiate that process? Number 2, the issue of boundaries, as you have mentioned. What then needs to be done now that the constitutional time limits has lapsed? So we look at it, I am sure, before the time lapsed, because I know we have a secretariat, and I know these are some of the most professional Kenyans running that secretariat. We will find out as a commission to what extent had they begun the preparatory processes towards the boundary review and the delimitations. So we'll look at the work already done, see what needs to be taken forward. But there are also, Ambassador, with your permission, there are also certain hard questions we have to ask ourselves. Now that this boundary delimitation constitutional time limit has ended, what are we supposed to do next? So we will have to seek, for example, with the judiciary, the Office of the Attorney General, to sort out the legal issues. Then number 2, we also have to bring on board stakeholders to have a discussion around the boundary delimitation vis-a-vis the timelines for the general election, which you have rightly mentioned that they are tight. So we have to make a decision as a country whether we can undertake both these exercises at the same time, or we focus as a country to planning and executing the 2022 elections. And this is an open discussion. We don't have the answers as a commission, but what I assure Kenyans is that we will call that dialogue so that we can address this very, very critical issue. Number 3, in terms of the IEBC itself, which is the document that guides the commission in terms of execution of its mandate, may have expired, and therefore there are preparatory processes towards coming up with a new strategic plan. So priority as chair would be for us to finalize that strategic plan, because strategic plan is a document that will guide us in terms of delivery of not only the general election, but also other critical processes, including the boundary delimitation. So our focus will be to look at that strategic plan, to approve it, and then from the strategic plan, we can now derive the electoral operations plan, and of course, many other plans, including the security, we sort out the funding issues. So for us, once we have these strategic policy guiding documents, and we are very comfortable as commissioners, remember we'll also be new, maybe most of us, if we are successful, we will have to very quickly internalize this and then roll out. And where certain decisions will require me as a chairman to gazette so that we initiate them, I will do so as soon as practicable. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank you for the answers that you have provided, and just hope that as you pray and hope that the Secretariat has done a lot more preparations for the administrative work, and we expect that they have done that in terms of preparing for the election, so that you or anyone else who gets this opportunity is able to plug in the processes and just ensure that the processes that require gazettement or require the commission are taken care of. Just lastly, I know the boundary delimitation will consequently resort to fresh registration of voters. And of course, there are younger voters who have since become of age that will be registering, and that requires another big job of cleaning the voters register, updating it and making it current. And all this work requires something you have mentioned called budget and funding. How are you going to address that issue? We have read that the Secretariat had proposed or asked for some money. And I just want us to discuss briefly on the issue of budgeting and the issue of your 6 colleagues, because being a member of the IEBC does not necessarily require you to have specific skills and competencies that you may require. So it may require some induction or some training. How are you going to deal with this to bring together this team and to get the necessary funding and budget to carry out the work?
Thank you, Ambassador. I think the issue of funding of IEBC and the elections and other processes, including delimitation, if we go there, will require us to engage with the Parliament, because that's the one that holds the purse strings. We will need to also engage with the Treasury to see how we can unlock some of these things. You know, our elections, of course, my understanding is sometimes you read in the media and elsewhere, is one of those expensive elections. And I know, of course, there are those cost drivers. So as a commission, we are aware that, of course, because we live in this country, we are aware of the limitations of the resources because of the hard economic times, not only in Kenya, but globally. So we will look at what we can get from the exchequer. But first and foremost, we will have, as new commissioners, we have to sit with our secretariats to understand the costing element, the cost aspects of our work. So that then, even as we seek funding, whether it's 60 billion, as I've read it in the media, or 100 billion, we know exactly what we are talking about. And as a project manager, one of the things that experiences and skills that I've built over time is that element of costing the various tasks and units. So you attach certain units cost to some things. So we will have to interrogate that budget or come up with a new budget proposal so that then we engage the key stakeholders in that respect. But allow me also to mention some years back when I was at UNDP, we used to support the IEBC in terms of funding certain processes. And I think I need also Kenyans to be comfortable. UN is an intergovernmental body, so it's not some NGO there trying to influence things in this country. This is an intergovernmental body that has the credibility and the capacity to support. But we as a commission will also look around and say, hey, who else can help us where there are certain funding gaps so that they can plug in. But we need to be very clear on what is it that we are costing, how much, and where are we getting these resources from, so that even when we are talking about the looking around for our partners, we are able to tell them this is where the deficit is and this is where we need their support. So I think that issue. And then, of course, internally, the issue of commissioners and induction. I think that's one of the first assignments we will have to undertake so that everybody is comfortable. When we are talking about budgeting or electoral processes and partnerships, then everybody's on the same page. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ethekon, and thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. This time I'd like to ask FCPA Tanui to ask some questions.
Thank you, and thank you, Chair. Karibu Bwana Ethekon. A question related to what Ambassador has asked you about the funding. Now I want to look at the accountability part of it. If you look at the Auditor General reports, IEBC accounts have always been qualified. I don't know whether they have gotten any unqualified report. Reason being that there are issues touching on procurement matters, how they have accounted for the funds allocated. So as you rightly put it, you'll look for funding from Treasury, you get UNDP and other donors to support. But the major issue that has been there at IEBC is accountability of the funds. And you will note the Public Accounts Committee reports. If you're to look at them, there are many key audit matters that have been raised. So as the chair, yes, we do know you are not the accounting officer, but you are the head of that institution. You are the head of the electoral management body. And yes, there is an accounting officer, but you are responsible for the commission as a chair. So what mechanism will you put in place, or what strategies will you put in place to ensure that there is accountability in the resources that have been allocated?
Thank you, CPA Tanui. And CPA Tanui, for your information, I attempted to follow your footsteps by studying CPA some years back after high school, but I managed only to reach CPA 2 thereabouts. Then I dropped it.
Yeah, so you can still continue.
Thank you. I think with this enormous task ahead, I may postpone it to a later date. But thank you very much, CPA Tanui. I think the question of accountability, because we have scarce resources in this country, and those institutions entrusted with these resources must understand that even to be an accounting officer of IEBC or the chair, these are positions that you hold in trust for the benefit of the people of Kenya. And one of those duties and obligations imposed upon us by law is to ensure that we account for and we are transparent in a manner in which we expend public resources. So as a chair, as a new chair, I will actually begin by taking a sample of some of these reports, the previous reports, to be able to understand where is the problem, because the auditors reports, they have done their assignment thoroughly and they have pointed out where there are these loopholes. So as a commission, to be able to seal some of these loopholes, we have to understand where the problems comes from, whether it's in procurement, whether it's in disbursements. So we will interrogate this report, see the clear recommendations of the Auditor General, but also the recommendations of the Public Accounts Committee, so that then we have to set up an implementation framework and timelines on how we are going to address those. It could be that maybe the money has not been lost or eaten. It could be that there are certain weaknesses in terms of the internal processes. And therefore, we need to strengthen our financial management and risk management processes and procedures and policies. Number two, I do know in any corporate institution, there's always an internal audit and risk management kind of arrangement or committee that is normally headed by a professional outside there, probably a member of the iceberg. And therefore, I believe the Commission has such a committee, audit and risk. We will look at the role of that committee in terms of helping us to manage some of these financial and fiduciary risks and risks associated with procurement issues, so that then we can seal the loopholes and hopefully move towards getting that unqualified report which we saw, which everybody desires in any corporate institution such as IEBC. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me also acknowledge the many qualifications that you have, even the CPA too. So congrats on that. Now, my second question is Hassan, the former chair IEBC. Actually, in his book, he talks of to be a chair of the Electoral Commission. He calls them 3 Gs. And one of the 2 Gs that I remember is that you need to have grandchildren, you need to be playing golf. And I was looking at your age and I was wondering whether you meet any of those criteria. So what do you tell people who are saying you could be young enough to be the chair of IEBC?
Thank you, CPA Tandui. Maybe looks are deceiving. I don't know. But at the age of 48, going to 49, I think this is the prime. This is the best age any professional can wish for, to be in positions of higher calling and higher responsibility. So to me, I feel I have the energy, I have the aptitude, the intellectual alertness, I have the necessary tools in terms of education and experience. And looking even forward, I believe if I do a splendid job in this running this commission for the next 6 years, it's basically I'll have something to tell my grandchildren because I'll still be alive to tell them the stories and the younger generations of this country. So for me, this is the right age. Thank you.
Lastly, given the nature of our politics, and you rightly said, looks may be deceiving. And I've actually listened to you, I think, for the last 1 hour. And I'm figuring out what transpired at KICC in 2007. You remember when the chair of IEBC there, Kivuitu, was at KICC. And just the other day at Bomas of Kenya. And looking at Ethicon today, you know, the presentation that you've had, you're mean, you know, you are humble. And those demonstrations that happen after the elections, people are walking to your office at IEBC and they say they want to see the chair. Or you're preparing for 2027 elections. And you have a stakeholder meeting, we are convening in a room like this. and they are players, active players in the elections, and they are demanding. Do you have that stamina to address those presidential candidates that have walked into IEBC headquarters, that are confronting you and demanding that you do certain things in a particular way? What can you say of that?
Thank you, sir, for that question. I think it is very serious what in the last, in some of these elections, like the ones you have cited, that those incidents happened in the Republic of Kenya. It is very sad. It's very unfortunate. As proud Kenyans who take this country as our proud home, because we don't have any other country, for us to degenerate to a level where we reach to those I don't know even how to describe those incidences, but as a country, in as much as I, as an individual chair in that spot, will have to think on my feet and how to handle the situation. But I would like also to call upon the entire country, the people of this republic, right from this panel, to think, why do we and how did we get to that level? What are these underlying issues as a society that we must look at for us not to be? For most people, you know, SCTNEWS and the distinguished panel, with your permission, Chair, even applying for this job is pressure itself. I will speak from my heart. There are those who say, congratulations, go for it. You have what it takes. Then there are those who are saying, no. You're going there, you're going to die. They're going to beat you. They're going to do this, all this negativity. And the sum total of it, when I soul search myself, I say, but even if I don't go there, who will do it? Some Kenyan must do this job. Unless we are talking about outsourcing it to somebody in India, somebody in Latin America, or wherever. But if the Constitution says a Kenyan citizen, because that's what's in the law, must do this job, then somebody has to do it. And that's why I'm here precisely, well aware of those pressures. But for me, as an individual, I know I have the stamina, the strength, the mental capacity to withstand those fracas. But as a commission, we'll put in place measures to try, learning from experience, to avoid those measures. Both, of course, security, immediate, but more importantly for me, I will open up this conversation to stakeholders, to the people of Kenya. Why do we have to go to get to that level of violence in front of cameras, in front of the whole world? That a process that we have taken time and invested a lot of money in, we've cast our vote, we've counted at the polling station. And now at that point, we now want to declare the final results, then we lapse into that kind of anarchy. So for me, as a chair, and as a new commission, we will begin to work with the electoral stakeholders. There are, of course, the political elites. That's where the problem is. We have to talk to this group and say, you can compete, you can win, but you can also prepare not to win. Because ultimately, it's the will of Kenyans that shall prevail. It is that voter, that polling station that determines your fate. So therefore, we have a conversation on how is it that we can manage situations where I am not the winner. And I would like to inform this distinguished panel of an experience that we had in 2013, where we had the two sides and many other candidates, and we were aware of such kind of things. And that's why it never happened 2013. The reason why it never happened is we working outside there, and I think it was that time the Isaka-san was chair. We supported what you call mediation processes by some of our elders in this country, elders, both men and women of a certain stature in the private sector, in the public service. We brought them together to be our interlocutors, to be the bridge between IEBC and the presidential candidates. And we got some of the close relatives of some of these presidential candidates to speak to them, some of their business partners, to whisper, to say, hey, in case, in the event that your votes don't reach that threshold, remember, you still have business in this country. You still have your daughter in this country, your grandchildren in this country. You have a country to protect. And therefore, whatever happens, let us take the legal route, which is go file a petition, ventilate the issue at the Supreme Court, whatever the outcome, let the country move on. We did it. And I remember, if you recall, those of us who were there at that time, remember peace charters. We had these candidates, all of them, commit to peace charter. We publicized it up to the determination by the Supreme Court, where we reminded them, and we reminded Kenyans that so and so, they have committed. They are not going to incite violence. They are not going to do this, but they have accepted they will follow the due process of the law. So that kind of arrangement, those kind of ideas, working with stakeholders, can help us to forestall the unfortunate situations and scenarios we witness in ICC and in BOS.
Thank you very much, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thanks. If I was in a privileged place like yourself, I'll have told Tanwi that I grew up in Turkana, so I can manage hard times and situations.
Thank you, Chair, for that.
Okay, let's have our friend Misati.
Thanks so much, Zekon. You have actually explained yourself. I was just doing a follow-up on when Ambassador Koki asked you about the priorities. Maybe you forgot about the issue of voter registration. I want to follow that with my question, where I'm looking at the IEBC commissioners and the secretariat. In the Krieger report, there were some recommendations which were done on how IEBC commissioners and the secretariat should operate. May you set right to this panel some of the recommendations that you know of, the information you have, because given that you are going to be the chair of IEBC, given an opportunity, you should be able to be fast about those recommendations of the Krieger report.
Thank you, Mr. Mohati.
Misati.
Mr. Musati.
Misati.
Thank you. I'm just sorry about that. Yeah. The Krieger report arose as a result of the events of 2007, 2008, in which we experienced that post-election violence. And then, of course, there was that process of internal review of our electoral management bodies. And I think some of the recommendations touched on the roles, the functions of the secretariats vis-a-vis the commissioners. And therefore, there was a recommendation to clearly delineate these roles so that to avoid situations where there are conflicts between the secretariat and the commissioners that can sometimes undermine the credibility of the institution, but also the credibility of the electoral processes. So that's one of the things that I can recall.
Thanks so much. Now, I want to make a follow-up question on the same. Kenyans are watching, and Kenyans are wondering why, for instance, the roles of the IEBC commissioners, when they are not there, the gazettement, the issue of gazettement, so that voter registration can go on. What is your take? Because it's actually the Secretariat which should be able to do that. Because why? Is it a problem in the regulations or in the law? Because the law says voter registration should be a continuous process. So Kenyans are wondering, why should IEBC staff all over the country be earning even salaries in the first place? What do you think you'll be able to do as a chairman to ensure that this process of voter registration is continuous? Because like now, if the commissioners are not there, they're not doing anything much. Why should they not be doing voter registration in the first place?
Thank you, Mr. Mohati. I think this issue has also been disturbing my mind whenever I try to interrogate our electoral processes and wonder why do we have to wait until sometimes towards elections, then we start running like headless chickens, trying to do mass voter registration. And yet, the commission over time has put in place and actually continue normal, regular basis to register voters and to clear it. So for me, I think my understanding at the moment is that the law, as it is, arising from the constitutional provision that makes IEBC a corporate entity, that corporate entity now makes it, in terms of decision making, it is the commission constituted as a board that makes some of those decisions, and including looking at the voter registration arrangements and okaying it. And if you look at the Elections Act, most decisions originate by way of gazette. Presidential election or vacancy has been declared, the chairman will gazette. Voter registration, chairman will gazette. Voter education. So for me, we need to look at the law as it is and to ask ourselves, does it serve public things this way, or public interest will better be served if we decentralize some of these things, so that then all that is needed is some kind of delegation of responsibility to the Secretariat to run with it. So for me, it's also a vexing question to me. But as a new chair with my commissioners, we will look at this and then make proposals working with political parties and other stakeholders to see whether there's a case for law reform. So for me, I think that's how I would look at it.
Thanks so much. It will be an issue. I wanted to remind you, it will be an issue of looking at the regulations, because the Constitution is very clear that registration should be a continuous process. So it's a matter of looking at the regulations. The other last question from me, or rather reminder to you, is that among the recommendations of the critical report was the formation of the tripartite dialogue platform between the election management board, the IEBC, the registrar of political parties, and the political parties, the PPLC that exists, Section 38. I wanted to remind you that it's, if you have any details about Section 38 of the Political Parties Act, that was actually a recommendation of the critical report. So the only question I wanted to ask you, just to finish, is whether you are aware why that recommendation came. Do you have, if your history serves well, particularly the one of the dialogue?
Yes. I think this recommendation, I think, arose because of the election is not, it's a process, and it has many sub-processes, then it has many actors. So when you look at IEBC, is the constitutionally mandated body to deal with electoral matters. But political parties, these are our clients. These are our key partners. These are the people we are there for, to facilitate them to participate in the political processes. So when you have the three institutions, the one that regulates political parties, their formation, internal democracy, dispute resolution, and then you have IEBC that deals with the managing the processes involved. So that dialogue is critical in addressing some of the issues along the process, taking into account some of the opportunities that dialogue brings, some of the opportunities for addressing challenges pre-election, for example, including challenges around nomination of party candidates, compliance with the party lists, and all this. So there are a number of issues that this structured dialogue, this structured platform can actually address in the electoral cycle. So I think it's a very important recommendation. And again, you've seen, it's just not only this. Over the years, many other informal platforms have also come up to foster dialogue. For example, our dialogue with other stakeholders, including, for example, the Interreligious Council, including civil society and what have you. So creating these safe spaces where people can ventilate issues and resolve will actually forestall a lot of things, including litigation, which is not normally expensive. Thank you.
Thanks so much. I wish you well, but I just wanted to remind you that when the Clear Commission, they were getting public information, they were told that the suspicion between the political parties and the election management body was so much during that post-election violence. The parties complained they were not getting information. So that is the reason why that dialogue, because for us to have a free and fair process, the stakeholders, the key players, the political parties have to be brought to the table to avoid that suspicion. Thanks so much, and I wish you well.
Totally agree. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. James Misati. And I would like to ask Ms. Fatuma Saman to also ask some questions.
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate you and thank you, Mr. Ethekon, for being an inspiration to the children of the North.
Thank you. Thank you, madam.
Doing 4 degrees and 2 diplomas in carefully selected areas is not a mean feat. So thank you from a mother. That's outside the interview. I've listened to you express clearly the IEBC mandate, the role, the understanding of how the governance structures and how they work. So for elections to be considered fair, the IEBC is expected to manage the electoral process not only by ensuring neutrality among the candidates, but fairness to the voters to the extent that the voters get equitable access to voting and the vote is protected and has a meaningful result till the end. The vote is protected and is meaningfully, it has a meaningful impact till the end. Because if you look at carefully our history, voter apathy and disillusionment comes from the lack of that. So if you are lucky to become the chair of the IEBC, how would you ensure that the voter gets that equal opportunity and the votes are protected till the end and they have a meaningful impact? What are the initiatives that you will champion as the chair of the IEBC?
Thank you, madam. I think there are a number of issues that arise there. Number one is the issue of IEBC taking the its mandate seriously, because IEBC is mandated to ensure that not only is the election fair, free, credible, transparent, verifiable, and more importantly, peaceful, IEBC is required to run the election in such a way that it must be seen to be what the Constitution has said. So all those elements must be there. And therefore, as we plan our electoral cycle, as we put in place our electoral operation plan, we have to put it in a way that it speaks to these issues. Number one, on the issue of the fairness, the participation of voters. We will put in place a system that will ensure that all the eligible voters are registered and are prepared to exercise their constitutional rights to vote. That therefore includes us reaching out to those marginalized areas, as we've had that conversation already, through those strategies. It involves us looking at those special groups, which we've had that conversation already on those strategies, and those will be in that operational plan. But more importantly, once we've registered everybody, we have to ensure the issues around the voter register, that we clean it up, that it's properly audited to ensure that only those eligible voters are actually allowed to exercise their voting and constitutional rights. Then number two, in terms of that part, the middle part, the polling, we have to ensure that we put in place measures that will forestall. For example, when you're talking about in neutrality and fairness, issues of, for example, those bribery and due influence, intimidation come into mind, because you cannot have a free, fair, neutral election when the voters are actually constantly being bombarded with either bribes, intimidation, harassment, and all these sorts of threats to a free and fair and neutral election. So we will put measures in place, working again with actors, political parties, to ensure that we manage these incidences that will put undue pressure to the voters, so that they're able to express their free will, exercise their universal suffrage rights, based on the equality of their vote and the quality of their vote. Because a vote that you cast in your free will is a quality vote. Then there are issues of access during the polling. As an ex-presiding officer, there are certain barriers that can affect citizens' access, and especially those with special needs, to the polling station and to the polling booth, and to be able to cast their vote as of the free. That's why, for example, we have measures such as mechanisms to assist some of the voters who cannot be able to write, to read and write. Those measures are there just to ensure that they are assisted to exercise their constitutional right. So that in that way, we ensure that fairness and equity. Then, of course, during the voting, the security around the polling station should be such that it gives people the confidence to come and cast their vote. That's where now we look at, of course, issues. For example, we have some special categories. We've not even spoken about them. For example, women. In elections, you find that this group can be intimidated and because it's a rough game, we've made it rough, which it shouldn't. It should be and smooth. So you find that sometimes we scare some of these constituencies because then, coming there to haggle, to fight, to kill and all that. So I know, of course, currently the commissioners, the number of voters accessing the particular polling station has been capped at 700, I think, to facilitate that that opportunity to cast their vote quickly. But we will look at those special issues around the security of, for example, women, mothers with their children, pregnant women, and other, of course, special groups, including people with disabilities. And then, of course, the integrity of the process itself, just to make sure the Kenyans have confidence that if I cast my vote, it is my vote, it is my choice, and it's going to be counted. It is going to be tabulated, and it's going to be announced or declared. So again, we will make sure that the commission and our staff conducting these exercises do the right thing. And of course, as a commission chairman, I will ensure that our staff, those who are managing elections and managing other processes, are people of integrity. Protect the commission and the integrity and credibility of their processes. So from that, the voter registration, the voting, the counting, and of course the transmission of results, we will ensure that the process is seamless, it is free, it is fair, it is credible, it is transparent, and we should be held accountable for it in the end. And if there are any failures or mistakes, once we do the audit, then we should be able to use those recommendations to make an improvement for the next one. So I would summarize that in that respect. Thank you.
As a follow-up question, what would be the role of voter education in all this, bearing in mind that there are stakeholders whose rights have been curtailed using negotiated democracy, which actually undermines democracy. So if you are to tweak the curriculum, or rather to improve and create, take care of these interests in terms of stakeholder engagements, what are your thoughts around this?
Thank you, madam. I know how negotiate democracy. I think sometimes it happens in where we come from, in the northern parts of the country, where elders sit and the stakeholders sit and agree. Maybe some candidate shelves their ambition in favor of another one and things like that. And maybe in the process, the people of that region miss out on maybe a candidate who could have served their needs better had they been given the freedom and the choice to support that candidate. So for me, I don't know whether our law allows for negotiated democracy. I don't think it allows for negotiated democracy at that level. But what I do know is that in terms of accommodating special interests, then we have factored in that proportional representation into our laws, into our Constitution, Article 90, and therefore then allows political parties, as they fight for this thing, as they haggle, but they are reminded, yes, there are certain categories of people, for example, the women, that you need to include in your party lists, persons living with disability, the youth, the marginalized groups, because understanding the power play, because politics and the requirements of the law, the party list under Article 90, where now these political parties have to share certain positions so that then they can meet the agenda to that requirement. The reports, if you read the post-election evaluation report, it shows that actually the county assemblies have met the 2/3 gender role. And you can begin to see the process by which some of the safeguards in the law, where now the computation of how do you allocate those seats. And despite the fact that there's still about 4, according to the Elections Act, but the County Government Act talks about 6. That's the youth, people with disability, and the marginalized groups. But the gender top-up, taken in totality, then the county assemblies have made it. Where the culprits are and where the problem is the National Assembly. The Senate, I think, has a gap of about 2 to meet it, just to slightly to stagger to it. But the problem, what I read in the report is the enormous assembly. So then, what is it that we require to do? Some of the measures we can put in place to bridge this gender gap. I know it's still an ongoing, it's open, but some of the thoughts that I have based on what the law says at the moment, until we go maybe for a major, maybe constitutional reform process or legislative serious reforms. At the moment, how about we look, and you have an assembly, you have 290 elected. Then you have I think 12. And therefore to play around, so that's the 12 is the gender top-up. And I think it's fixed at that, at that level. So then you cannot even, twist the political parties through the political party list to top up, because they have been foreclosed. Again, the same with the Senate. So we have to find a way where then maybe we can open up that, so that then in law, we can have more latitude within the political party arrangements, within the internal democratic processes, for them now to mobilize these constituents, either through proportional representation, test the elected seats by the law. So we need maybe some changes in the law to allow that flexibility, like the county assemblies have done. But for me, I think the whole aspect of proportional representation was a bridge gap. It was not meant to really last forever. It was meant to uplift these marginalized people, the ethnic minorities, the women, the youth, the people with disability. But in a country that is progressive, that our democracy is keeping on, it's improving. And look at Karo and give them an equal chance through electing them by the ballot. So I think we need to put measures as a country to support our women, our marginalized people, to begin to participate, to begin to enjoy the Article 38 rights. So we need to to look at those barriers. For example, in most elections, maybe women shy away because of the level of violence and intimidation, the amount of money you need for you to contest an elected seat. So we need to address issues of election financing. How does it impact these marginalized groups or special groups? We need to look at security. We need to look at the attitudes of our parties within their party structures and arrangements. What is it that they are doing to encourage more women to contest, actually, to run even against men? So that then Kenyans can be given that opportunity to choose from a variety of 10 dominant kind of electoral processes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I now want to ask Professor Adam Solo also to ask you some questions.
Thank you, Chair. Edun Ethicon. You know the CV and you're trying to make the connection. But listening to you, the connection comes out. And therefore that makes me change
Thank you.
the question that I wanted to ask. Because the Vice Chair and other members have brought out that connection.
Thank you, sir.
The time to give you the practical aspects of our election and therefore ask you to tell Kenyans why at 48 you are that man that they have been looking for. FCPA Tanui gave you the example of Samuel Kivuitu the late. He was quoted as the results were coming in, saying, I can't reach my returning officers. I hope they're not cooking results out there. Then on the day that he was announcing the results at KICC that you have referred to, he was alone with only one, the state media station, with GSU around him. And the swearing in took place at dusk. No normal fanfare, no presidents invited, no ambassadors invited. We had to change the law so that now there's a very clear legal process of swearing in the president. In Bomas that you have talked about, and near similar, the Supreme Court, even at its 3
from the Kivuitu debacle to Bomas. In between, there have been certain constitutional changes, some legislative changes that have tried to move us from that situation where we declared openly that it doesn't returning officers are. And in the recent elections, as recent as 2013, 2017, and to date, we've witnessed a situation where the returns from the polling stations and the constituency tallying centers actually reach the final tallying center. So there have been certain improvements. For example, because I know most of the time voting might not be the real problem, but where the elephant in the room is in the manner in which we handle our results, the manner in which we tally, tabulate, count, tabulate, tally, and then transmit. So we've seen certain improvements through the use of technology, the RTS, the electronic result transmission system, as we witnessed last time. We've seen improvement in openness, transparency, in the manner in which the results are handled both at the polling station but also at other levels. So for me, the way I look at it, I think there's a big gap, deficit in terms of us as Kenyans trusting our institutions to deliver free, fair, transparent, verifiable elections. So that lack of confidence is in our institutions and our processes is what we need to address. And if you look at, Prof, even the cost of our elections alone, it's one of the most expensive. And for me, the way I look from where I sit, I see that lack of trust is what is costing us, even in accounting terms, in financial terms. Because then we tend therefore now to sometimes even over-prescribe, over-legislate, over-regulate. For example, technology, we know we have to procure, then we have to do audit. We have to get an independent firm to audit it all the way up to after elections. So for me, I would pray for the day when we as Kenyans can trust and say, Mr. Rasta doing Ethicon has really nothing to gain by bungling elections, by undermining the will of the people of Kenya. What do I stand to gain? So I would want a situation where this new commission, we sit down, number one priority, how do we restore trust? How do we bridge that gap? We look at those processes. We look at the people, even internally, our staff. Are they neutral? Are they impartial? Are they professional? We as commissioners, we come individually. I'm here today, I'm speaking for myself, but there'll be others, they speak for themselves. You will pick 6, maybe perhaps to join me, luckily. But we bring different personalities, different orientations, different persuasions. So we need to reconcile all that and look at the law and say, look, the Constitution, Article 73, tells us the position you occupy as a commissioner, as chair, and as secretariat is a commission of trust by the people of Kenya. And therefore you should do it, carry out your duties and functions as commissioners in a manner that must comply with the objectives and the purpose of the Constitution. And it gives us all that directions. Number 2, we must behave and carry out our duties in a manner that respects the people of this country. Because when you look at what happened in Bomas, it doesn't show any respect to the people of Kenya who have given us this trust and responsibility. So for me, I will work hard to ensure that collegially and together as a team, we interpret the law and we stick to the law. And if it's, for example, that issue that's normally contentious, the result transmission and the declaration of the final results. In the case of what you've mentioned, as commissioners, we have to have structured kind of engagement. Our decision making must be such that we make decisions based on the law. And where we have disagreements, we should be able actually to record, to air those disagreements, say, I disagree with this, but it has to be recorded. For example, in the case of that presidential results, the law and in the rulings of the Supreme Court, the results at the polling stations are final. The results recorded in Form 30. So the role of the chair is to return and declare as they are. The 7 of us should be to verify and to ensure that they correct what is in the portal, what is what we have been, the returns that have come from the polling stations out of the, I think, 46,229 polling stations, that these forms actually are authentic, the security features, the recording of all these things, so that then we do it as a collegiate, as a collective. And where any member of my team disagrees, we should be able to record it in our minutes and in our reports, so that I made a decision. For example, if as the chairman I disagree with certain things, I can be able to say this number of forms, I don't think they are authentic. And then it has to be recorded. So that then we don't witness a situation where I take off and or I leave someone else to do this. Yet we were recruited together and we were banded together to undertake a national duty, which is very sensitive. So, I mean, I would not, So for me, it's about that internal dialogue. It's about structuring our decision making. And it's about, of course, assigning ourselves duties. And the case of secretariat, for example, of and I've worked with a commission before. that recognize the rights of these minorities and marginalized groups. And that's why, for example, then the rights to political participation. We also have affirmative action. For example, the revenue sharing formula takes into account that aspect of marginalization in the allocation of resources. So the revenue sharing formula, but there's also the affirmative action fund, which is meant to bring those marginalized areas to some level.
What's the name of that affirmative action fund? It's okay.
I cannot remember the exact wording, but I know there's the affirmative action fund. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ethokon. We have enjoyed this time with you. We appreciate the robust engagement, and we've even overshot our time. And thank you for allowing us that privilege. We asked for memoranda to be given to us about you. We didn't get any from Turkana, and we haven't gotten any from any other part of the country. And so we will let you go.
Thank you.
And maybe invite you when we receive something like that. Do you have any question for us?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think not really a question, but to sincerely thank the panel for giving me an opportunity to have this kind of interactive dialogue with you. But more importantly, to give me a chance, to stand a chance to serve this country and to make it a better place for us and the future generations. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Every dream is valid, and we wish you very well. Please remember to pick your documents, and there's a bottle of water there. You didn't use it. You might find it helpful after this. Blessings to you, and wish you success. Thank you. Okay, asanteni, our friends in the media. So maybe some few minutes so that we can finish up this. Just unhook your gadgets so that unhook them, remove the mics.
Live from the College of Insurance in South Sea, Nairobi.
At Sound Candid Talk, we provide live UHD broadcasting for church services, talk shows and podcasts, weddings, live bands, products and services launches, webinars and trainings, Zoom meetings, conferences, seminars, exhibitions, and virtual concerts.